.com to find a retail location near you.
Let's go.
All right, we'll have Marcus Mosher coming up next on the Modelo guest line. Our NFL draft coverage is brought to you by Modelo Especial and Modelo Negra. Fantastic beer. Enjoy one this afternoon with the lime. Ice cold Modelo. That's right, our NFL draft coverage brought to you by Modelo. It was a Taco Tuesday yesterday, so I hope you had an ice cold Modelo. Want to welcome you in, say good morning. Thanks for hitting the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Search the Out of Bounds Show. We would love for you to hit subscribe. Exciting time with the NFL draft and Ole Miss hosting South Carolina this weekend and Mississippi State hosting the Texas A&M Aggies. Marcus Mosher next. NFL Chuck Mullins at 8 a.m. Lots of draft, QB discussion, SEC players everywhere. And look at the wide receivers on the board, man. Jamar Chase, DeVonta Smith, Waddle, Elijah Moore. It's just unbelievable. Elijah Moore only has a few more hours, maybe a day or two, before he becomes a multimillionaire. Not a bad deal. You know, you wake up today and you'll either be a multimillionaire tomorrow night or when you're drafted in the second round on Friday. This is the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by Ace Bolt and Screw, powered by DeWalt Tools. Also presented by Mississippi Ag for your next John Deere tractor. 16 locations, Mississippi Ag Up, John Deere, America's Tractor, 2 locations in the metro area, Canton and Pearl. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. You can watch the show on YouTube, search Out of Bounds Sports, and you're listening to ESPN 105.9 The Zone. We welcome in Marcus Mosher, NFL insider, Raiders, Cowboys, and he joins us on the Modelo guest line. Marcus, good morning. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. I'm very anxious and excited for this draft. It should be a lot of fun.
Man, we are too, and I agree with you. Tomorrow night's going to be a blast, as well as Friday and Saturday. I'd like to start with 3 and 4 because that's the big topic of conversation. And as we bring in our NFL guys the last couple of weeks, we've asked them the same deal. What direction you think the 49ers and Falcons will go? But let's start at number 3. Are you buying the static and noise on Mac Jones, or no way Lynch and Shanahan moved that much draft capital to move up to number 3 to draft Mac Jones?
Man, I still have a hard time believing it's Mac Jones. When the trade initially went down, the first name that kind of popped to my head was Trey Lance. I think he's just such a perfect fit in that offense. I think the ceiling is so high. But the more and more people that you talk to, it does seem like Mac Jones is certainly in the conversation, if he's not in the lead for this spot. So I think the 49ers are trying to keep this as close to the vest as possible. But I still think it's going to be Trey Lance ultimately tomorrow night.
Do you like that pick? For our listeners, Trey Lance is out of North Dakota State. He only played one game last year, and most of you have never watched North Dakota State play football unless it was in the national championship game in the playoffs. Marcus, do you like Trey Lance, and do you like that pick if they go that direction?
I do. I think he's a perfect fit for that Kyle Shanahan offense. He's very athletic. He's got a huge arm. And most importantly, he's incredibly smart. And I think he's growing as a player. I think he's somebody that, as he gets, further into the league and he learns more and more of that offense, I do think he's got like top 5, top 6 quarterback potential in the league. I do wonder if the 49ers would be smart to allow Jimmy Garoppolo to play this year, keep, redshirt Trey Lance, keep him on the bench. But I do think that's probably the best pick for the 49ers at 3.
All right, so if the 49ers take Trey Lance, that means Trevor Lawrence from Clemson's off the board, Zach Wilson from BYU to the Jets, and Trey Lance to the 49ers. Marcus Mosher, NFL Draft Insider on the Modelo guest line. What direction do the Falcons go? Do they pick a Kyle Pitts, a quarterback, or trade out of that pick at number 4?
I think Atlanta would love to move back to 7, 8, 9. I just don't know how realistic that is. I don't know what the level of interest in like a Justin Fields or a Mac Jones is for the Panthers or the Broncos. And my guess is that the Falcons are going to get stuck a little bit and have to pick. Luckily, there are some pretty good options available at number 4. I think I'm convinced that it's going to be Kyle Pitts, the tight end from Florida. I think you can make a really good case. He's the best player in this draft, and I think he's a generational talent at tight end. You put him in that offense with Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley and Matt Ryan, and you're getting, I think, a Pro Bowl player right away.
All right. So, and you believe he's the most talented player in the draft because we don't have a Bosa or a Khalil Mack or a Myles Garrett type player, right?
I think at his position, he is the best in this draft, right? I think he's a better tight end than Trevor Lawrence as a quarterback. I know the importance of quarterbacks, so those guys are always going to get picked early. But yeah, I think not only is he the best, offensive weapon in this class, I think he's the best tight end I've seen, doing this in the last 15, 20 years. He's that special.
Marcus Mosher, podcast host of Locked On Cowboys, Cowboys Insider, Raiders Insider. He joins us on the Modelo guest line. What team is dying to move up and will move heaven and earth to do so, or at least make that attempt tomorrow night for the first round?
Yeah, the Chicago Bears. They draft, I believe it's 19. Their biggest problem is teams that are drafting inside the top 7 or 8 in this class don't really want to move all the way down to 19. So Chicago can offer multiple first-round picks to come up and get a quarterback. But as a team, like the Dolphins or the Lions or the Panthers, do they really want to slide all the way back that far and miss out on, the top 10, 12 players in this draft? I don't think so, but Chicago has been very, very active. They're trying to do whatever they can. They're trying to be very creative in trades to get inside that top 10 to get a quarterback. I just don't know how likely it is.
And so Chicago wants to make a move because their jobs are on the line, and they know they don't have a good enough player to drive them where they want to be in late December and January. What is realistic for Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots tomorrow night as far as potentially moving up and grabbing a QB, Marcus?
Yeah, no, I do think they have a much better chance because they're drafting at 15. They've already had conversations with the Dallas Cowboys and the Denver Broncos about getting to 9 or 10. If Justin Fields falls there, I think they would be interested. I do think Mac Jones is somebody that they like quite a bit. For them to get to 9 or 10, it's really not all that expensive. It's probably a second-round pick, maybe a day 3 pick this year, and maybe a future pick in 2022. But it's certainly doable. Bill Belichick and the Patriots have the draft capital. They have players that they can move if teams are interested in that. I fully expect the Patriots to be active and probably make a move inside the top 10.
Ooh. Okay, so if Justin Fields is there, all right, if they move up, Marcus Mosher on the Out of Bounds show, if the Patriots move up and Justin Fields out of Ohio State is still there and Mac Jones is still there, what direction do they go?
It's a great question that I'm not sure I have the answer to. I actually believe they're more likely to trade up for Mac Jones than they are Justin Fields. I do believe that they probably have I think they probably have Trey Lance ahead of both of those guys. Just from talking to people in the league, it seems like that's kind of the consensus, is that Trey Lance is the third best quarterback in this class, and some believe he's the second best quarterback in the class after Trevor Lawrence. So I'm going to be fascinated to see if Justin Fields is the only quarterback available at 9 or 10. Does New England move up, or do they just sit and wait at 15 and see what happens?
Oh, man. All right, Marcus Mosher on the Modelo guest line. Cowboys Raiders Insider Draft tomorrow night, and a lot could start to happen at 4. But as Mosher's telling us, who knows what could happen here between 7, 8, and 10, depending on what has happened prior to that and what Bill Belichick tries to do. And who's and again, as Marcus is saying, who's willing to take the offer? I would with this draft, but what do I know? Blake, You're dying over here to ask Marcus Mosher a question.
Well, we're talking trades, and so Washington is, I think, in the worst position in the NFC East in terms of quarterbacks. They're starting Ryan Fitzpatrick. They don't have Alex Smith. He retired, and they've got a backup who played one postseason game. So they're sitting at 19. Like you said, the Bears are at 20. Would Washington try to trade up? And if they, where could they go? Would that be, do you see that being the one NFC team that really goes after a quarterback in this year's draft?
Yeah, Blake, I think it's the same situation as Chicago, right? It's, how high can you go up when your first pick is at 19? I just don't envision that a team like Denver is going to want to slide back from 9 all the way to 19. And then the Cowboys sit at 10. There's no way that the Cowboys are trading with the Washington football team to get a quarterback, right? And then the Giants draft at 11, and then the Eagles draft at 12. So you would think that Washington would have to get up to 8 or 9, and I just don't know if they have the draft capital to do that. Now, if they want to be really, really aggressive and start offering players to get up there, that makes a ton of sense. But in terms of just pure draft capital, I don't know if they can do it.
Marcus Mosher on the Out of Bounds show and the Modelo guest line. Back to Atlanta at 4. Are you surprised that they are looking to move off of Julio Jones after June 1st, Marcus?
I'm not necessarily surprised, because if you do take, let's say, a Kyle Pitts at 4, your offense would still be fine with Pitts and Calvin Ridley and Hayden Hurst. Unless they're getting a ton of draft capital back, I would have a hard time moving him now with, still having Matt Ryan. Why not try to make one more run? But if they believe they can get a significant haul back for Julio, I guess it makes sense.
How do you grade this QB class? Trevor Lawrence has played a ton of ball, and people seem to feel like, hey, he's going to work out with Urban Meyer at some point. Zach Wilson's a heck of a player, but Trey Lance only played one game. He doesn't have that 24, 25, even closer to 30 starts that a lot of GMs and NFL people talk about. Justin Fields and Mac Jones played on great teams where they didn't have to elevate the players around them. Bama and Ohio State are 1 and 2 in recruiting. They have studs all over the field. I don't know if you take that into account when you're evaluating QB prospects. How do you look at this group overall, Marcus?
I think this is the second best quarterback draft we've had in the last decade. I think the 2018 class was maybe slightly better with Baker and Sam Darnold and Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. But this one is awfully close, because you mentioned Trevor Lawrence. I love Justin Fields. I think he's the second best quarterback in this class. You just don't find guys that are that big, that strong, that fast, and were productive and won a bunch in college. I like Justin Fields a ton. I don't understand why he's necessarily falling in drafts. I actually think in the long run, this might be better for Justin Fields, right? If he ends up going, let's say 15, or maybe he even, Chicago or Washington do get him, I think that's better for his career than going to a bad team early on and really struggling. So I like Justin Fields. I think Trey Lance is a heck of a prospect. I think Zach Wilson has a lot of potential. And even after those guys, I don't mind Kyle Trask on day 2. Kellen Mond is a really interesting quarterback prospect from Texas A&M, who I know teams like a lot. I think this is a very, very strong quarterback class.
Okay, Marcus Mosher, Cowboys, Raiders insider on the Modelo guest line, talking NFL draft tomorrow night. So what would you like for I'll go with what would you like for the Cowboys to do at 10? And what do you think Jerry Jones will do at number 10 tomorrow night?
Yeah, they can go in a lot of directions at 10, and I think I would be very happy. If they go offensive line, that probably would be my preferred pick with Penei Sewell or Rashawn Slater. I just don't think you can go wrong investing in your offensive line. I do think the goal is to grab one of the top 2 cornerbacks in Patrick Surtain or J.C. Horn. It sounds like the defensive staff, Dan Quinn, their defensive coordinator, loves J.C. Horn. Mike McCarthy coached J.C. Horn's dad, Joe Horn, in the NFL. I think there's a lot of connections there, but I believe the scouting staff, including Will McClay, prefer Surtain. at the end of the day, if they come out of this draft with either of those players, those are fantastic cornerback prospects that are worthy of going at number 10. And I do think the Cowboys will eventually walk away with one of those two players.
Okay, so Marcus Mosher, NFL Draft Insider on the Modelo guest line. He joins us to talk Dak throughout the year and the Cowboys. So there's this big tie between Dan Quinn and Will Muschamp, and J.C. Horn played at South Carolina, and Joe Horn knows Mike McCarthy from their Saints days. So there's this big – I mean, do you believe that has a significant impact in the draft room for the Dallas Cowboys, the fact that Joe Horn's son played at South Carolina, and there's all these ties to both Joe Horn and J.C. Horn and people within the Cowboys organization now, Marcus?
Yeah, of course it does, right? The NFL is all about relationships and who you know, and there's a lot of familiarity there between J.C. Horn and the Dallas Cowboys. And on top of that, he's a fantastic cornerback prospect. So if you can get somebody whose talent's worthy of the 10th pick, who you also know very, very well, Mike McCarthy's known J.C. Horn since he was, throwing the football around at 5 years old on the field before games. So, yeah, I do think that matters. Will it ultimately be the reason they take Surtain over, or take J.C. Horn over Surtain? I don't know, but it's a very heated conversation that the Cowboys are having as we speak.
All right, for our Dallas Cowboy Dak fans, describe the difference, if there is much. But I think Surtain and Horn.
I think Surtain is a little bit more technically sound. I think he's probably smoother of an athlete. I think he can play in multiple coverages. He's a 3-year starter at Alabama. He started as a freshman under Nick Saban. That never happened. And then J.C. Horn's a little bit more aggressive. I think he plays the cornerback position like he's feisty. He's a little bit more grabby. I think he's got the right temperament for the position. He doesn't let one play bother him. They're both very good cornerback prospects, but one's very quiet. I would describe Surtain in like a Byron Jones type of level, or type of the way he plays, where Horn wants to get in your face and trash talk and chew you out and then brag about what he did on the next snap. So, again, very, very good cornerback prospects that they couldn't be more different.
Oh, wow. So he just described Joe Horn, his dad. Feisty wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints. Yep. That's great. Marcus Mosher. Follow Marcus on Twitter. He's a great follow, at Marcus_Mosher. And he's the host of the podcast Locked On Cowboys. He joins us on the Modelo guest line. I got to get to Elijah Moore first. All right. Elijah Moore is a flat-out rock star wide receiver at Ole Miss. He had a great year, and that was against all SEC opponents. No G5s to put up big yards against. Some people believe he could go late in the first round, but definitely off the board early in the second. How do you see Elijah Moore on Thursday or Friday, Marcus?
You described him. He is an absolute rock star. People think that DeVonta Smith, was absolutely dominant last year. He was, but Elijah Moore actually averaged more receiving yards per game in the SEC than DeVonta Smith did last year. I think Elijah Moore is exactly what the NFL is looking for, right? These guys that can get open with route running, that can make plays, after the catch, behind the line of scrimmage, down the field. He can play inside and in the outside. I think he is an absolute lock to go in the first round. I think his range starts about 21 to the Colts. I know the Titans like him quite a bit. The Packers are super interested. I would be absolutely shocked if he doesn't go in the first round.
Ooh, I love that. All right, yeah, we've talked to people inside the Ole Miss football program, and they say he's a fantastic kid, workaholic, all the stuff that you want when you're investing that much capital into a young man. What would be the best case scenario for Elijah Moore, in your opinion, if he goes between 21 and 32, Marcus?
Green Bay, you put him in that offense where he's playing in the slot like Randall Cobb did for nearly a decade with Aaron Rodgers. And I think you're getting a guy, as a rookie, could potentially have 1,000 yards in that offense. You pair him with Devontae Adams. You allow him to do some of the jet sweeps and some of the screens, and I just think he would be absolutely dominant. I would love to see him play for the Packers. The Cowboys side of me does not want that to happen because it just makes the Packers all that much better. But for Elijah Moore, that would be phenomenal.
And from what I gather, you don't see that much difference in DeVonta Smith and Waddle and Elijah Moore, right?
I don't. I think they are both players that should go after the top 15 or 16 picks. I think they both project as like high-end number 2 receivers in the NFL rather than, the A.J. Green, Julio Jones type of number 1 guys. But in terms of guys that can get open with route running and speed and win after the catch, yeah, I think they're very, very similar.
And is Jamar Chase your number 1? And what's the gap if he is?
Yeah, it's pretty significant. I have Jamar Chase as my 5th best player in the class, and then DeVonta Smith comes in at 22. So there's a pretty big tier gap difference. There might even be 2 tiers between those two.
And do you expect Cincinnati to go with Sewell at number 5 for Joe Burrow? Or do you expect Joe Burrow to maybe win the room and the Bengals draft Jamar Chase and maybe hope they can find the offensive line help in the 2nd and 3rd round? How does that look?
Yeah, so from everything that I'm hearing, Joe Burrow has not, campaigned for anybody, but it does sound like the Bengals are leading Jamar Chase for the reason that they believe there's a pretty significant talent gap between wide receivers you can get in round 1 versus wide receivers you can get in round 2. I think they really like some of the offensive guards that could be available at the top of the 2nd round. Go get a dynamic playmaker that can replace A.J. Green, that can win down the field, that can take the top off the defense. I think Jamar Chase would be an incredible fit, again, with Joe Burrow in that Bengals offense.
Okay, real quick, I got 1 minute. Miami and Tua. Do you think that the Miami front office head coach are really bought into him? And what do they give him some help on offense? What direction do they go for Tua at number 6?
Yeah, I think they're going Jalen Waddle, the speedster from Alabama. I think they want to make that offense faster. And if Tua doesn't succeed, now they've got, the plans and the offensive talent around the next quarterback to come in. So look for the Dolphins to add a wide receiver at 6 and then an offensive tackle at 18.
I think I got time. Dak Prescott, if they go defense at number 10, Horn or Surtain, do they go offensive line at, I think, the 44th pick in the 2nd round, Marcus?
I would look a little bit later. I think 3rd round, they have 2 third-round picks, 75 and 99. I'm looking for a developmental offensive tackle. They really believe that Tyron, Lyell, and Zach Martin are all going to come back healthy. So maybe a little bit later, but they will absolutely draft an offensive lineman at some point in this draft.
He just nailed it. 20 minutes on the NFL draft. Marcus Mosher. Follow him on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Cowboys Raiders insider. Marcus, thanks so much for your time today. We appreciate it, bud.
Yep, enjoy the draft, guys.
Marcus Mosher on the Modelo guest line. Our NFL draft coverage is presented by Modelo Especial. Enjoy an ice cold Modelo this afternoon with the lime. Want to welcome you in. Say good morning. The show is presented by Ace Bolt & Screw, powered by DeWalt Tools. It is also brought to you by XL Water and Coffee. Water, bottled water, or a cooler delivered to your door. They can do bottled water, Gatorade, bubbler, water delivered to your door. Go to wateratmydoor.com. 50% off. 50% off your initial order with discount code BOUNDS. That's wateratmydoor.com. NFL Chuck Mullins stops by for an hour. Coming up next.